wargamers and artists. This is Cutthroat Cure, Devin Marr also. I was asked by a bunch of people exactly how I do some of my basing, more particularly the ruins, the Forest Ruins bases, how I get the consistency with the paint, the flock, what I use, what are some of the steps that I basically go through in order to get the finished result. Instead of typing it out every time to let everybody know what to do, I decided to shoot a small tutorial video and show everybody basically a few of the steps of what I do in order to get the basing that everybody seems so interested in. Basically, when I first start to do my basing, the main thing you need to have is some sort of an imagination, a story, an idea. I decided when I did my Troll Blood army that I wanted to focus on having an army that looks like it was coming together in basically the broke down civilization that they once had, therefore a forest ruin base. I tried to go through a lot of methods in figuring out what I wanted to do. I looked at a lot of online resin-based kits, already made bases, and nothing really came to the standard that I wanted for my army. Because let's be honest, painting's great, but if you don't have a good base or a foundation to stand on, your army's going to kind of come up short. So what I ended up doing actually is using a form of polymer clay, which a lot of people have asked me what I use. It's a Super Sculpey. It is the oven baked clay. You can find it at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, online. I personally prefer the beige just because it seems to cook in the right manner and it's easy to paint and base over. So what I basically do is I get some of that and I get it together, get a nice sized ball, and I knead it for quite a while just to make sure that it's smooth and easy to work with. And as you will see, it comes in these little strips, and I basically just pull some off and just kind of run it between my fingers into a larger bit until it's smooth enough to lay down. So what you're going to need when you're designing your the pieces of the rune that you're going to work on to attach to your base, you're going to need a few simple items that you should have in your wargaming or artistry arsenal. Two main ones are some sort of a top. I personally use a dull coat, Tester's dull coat top, and a Woodland Sceneries top. They basically keep my stuff in, and I just pull them off to get some diversified circles. You're going to need something that's flat to kind of press the clay down to give it sort of a flat function. You're going to need an assortment of clay shapers. I've got some wooden ones and some silicone ones. You can get the wooden ones at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or online for like $3 or $4, and the silicone ones for probably about 12 or 13. They're very invaluable tools. You'll use them for a lot of stuff such as this or green stuff work. You're going to need a plastic bag. Plastic bag's actually very important. And basically just whatever idea you have when going into it. So once you have your clay nice and pliable and moldable, you basically roll it into a ball as much as you can. You set it down, get something flat, and you just press it until you have kind of a nice flat area that you can make your initial circle with. Now, if it's a little bit uneven, it's not a big deal. As I said, you want it to kind of look destroyed, torn up, tattered, but you want a smooth enough workspace that you're going to be able to draw on when you do the initial basing. So basically, I just press this out until I have somewhat of a smooth space, and then I take my bigger of the two areas that I have circular-wise, And basically just set it down, press, and then remove any excess. Now keep this because it's not damaged and you can still use it for later endeavors. So just put it back in your box. Then, once you get that back out, you've got a nice, pretty even circle. Then you can take your other one and just kind of set it somewhat in the middle. And you push down, not all the way through, but just enough to give yourself a little bit of an outline. And what that does is that's going to give you two different areas to work within that will break up any monotony and kind of give you a basic design to put your runes in. You want to take your sculpting tool and basically just draw on it. You could do things like a little smiley face, make yourself a real happy legion. You could do numbers. And of course you're going to want to do things a lot smaller than this, but this just gives you the idea of how easy the clay is to work with. And if you mess up, you basically just roll it back up, start over and try again. It's real simple, a real easy project for beginners. Now, once you've basically gotten your rune together and you've drawn in it, you put it in the oven for on 275 for 15 minutes. And when you take it out, it's going to seem like it's wet. Don't leave it in longer. Pull it out. It'll actually dry quite hard. Now this is a piece that I've already finished. As you can see, I did the alternating circles and I just kind of went crazy drawing a bunch of stuff. I think I even have a little ship from Galaga on there. It's little fun things. And basically at this step you want to give it that broken, you know, natural broken look when you put it on your basing. So this is when your bag is going to come into effect. Basically you just open it up, put the runes in there, which looks all nice like a cookie, and then basically you just break it up as natural as possible. Just snapping pieces off, make it, you know, just make it into smaller chunks that will actually fit onto your bases. And don't be worried because, you know, yeah, all the hard work that you did on drawing on it is probably going to look kind of mangled, but when you're done, you're going to have these little pieces that actually look like they're destroying the ruins. And you can break more off the little pieces just to kind of give them a more natural look or whatever sizing you want. And, you know, keep every piece that you can because, you know, you never know when you're going to, you know, need a little piece to go on a base or a big piece to go on another base. All of them are very helpful and you get that sort of messed up runic look, and that probably took like a minute to get that device. And as you can see, the pieces are real easy to break apart and use. So basically you just store them into a bag until you're actually working on your bases. Pick these up. Another important thing that I use in almost all of my basing material is corkboard. This, for any wargamer or artisan who's going to do any sort of basing work or diorama, corkboard is easy to work with, it's inexpensive, it gives a real natural look, and you're able to do a lot of things with it that, you know, sometimes you can't do with the clay itself. And the best way to use it is, you know, basically just tear off pieces and put it onto your basing until you have a until you have something that meets your standard of what you want to work with. Basically, after you've got your corkboard together, you'll see in this base right here, you have your cork, you have your base, and then you have the piece of the ruin that kind of molds together, and you want to make sure you leave enough area for your model to go on top of it to glue down easy enough. And then what I do at this point, in order to make sure that it gives a little bit of a more natural look and breaks up some of the edging, is I'll take just regular super gold glue. You can get this at almost any hobby store. I think this was like 12 bucks, but I mean it works for both basing and putting your models together. And And I just will naturally just kind of dab some in here in just random spots just to break up a little bit of the monotony and the real straight circles or edges that just kind of look like it was man-made. So let me get this other area over here. What I like to do after that is, I am a big fan of Gale Force 9 products, and what I do is, mainly just because I love their containers. They're easy to work with, they stack, whether it's their turf or their static grass. It cuts down on the amount of space that you need to store your stuff. But what I like to do is I actually take 2 to 3 different granules of their, basically their grit or dirt. And I put it all together to give you alternating sizes, which is more of a natural look when you're doing your basing. Basically, with the glue sitting on there, you basically just drop that sucker in there. Make sure it's in there. This is one reason you do not want to attach your models to the base before you actually build the base. Just give it a nice shake to give it that idea of organized chaos, where the grit can fall wherever it wants to and stick to the glue however it wants to. You basically just knock it off to kind of conserve some of the expensive products we buy. Close that back up, get rid of it. And then what you get is, after you clean off the edge, especially if you're using a lift base by Privateer Press, so you can leave your arc marks, you have this basically base that has no real functioning edges that look like it was made that way. So you have these areas where the grit's in here or the grit's in there or sticking in places, and when you paint it, it's going to make it a lot easier to break up any monotony you have. Now definitely make sure that you have a color scheme in your mind to when you put these together, because you don't want any one area to seem like it has too much of the same color on it. Now when you finish with that and you go through the whole painting process, you've decided what you wanted to put on it, you've decided how you want it to look, you then can attach your model once it's painted, just to break down on the effect of getting paint from your model onto the base or vice versa. Now I always try to have an idea of what I want, so before I paint the model or after I paint the model, I will kind of fit it on the base to make sure that it will specifically fit the model that is designed for that base. Now with this guy, you can see that I've already done the rooms, I've already done the painting on the cork, and I've gotten the grit on there, but I need to apply some of the turf or flock or static grass. Now when I'm doing these, basically my main focus is to make the base really come alive, break up the coloring. But another really important thing that this can do is if there's any blemishes or little mistakes that you made, too much glue, anything like that, how you put the flock on there, you can apply it in a natural manner where it also covers up any mistakes you made. Now, particularly on this Troll Blood Champion, I forgot to paint the back of his leg here. Now, sometimes that happens, you know, you're trying to paint on a deadline, you're trying to make sure things get done, and it wasn't until I put him on here that I actually realized that was even there. So, what I'm going to do is, once again, getting my super gold glue, I'm going to just put a little dab right on his foot and on the base, and then I'm just going to take just a piece of, once again, Gale Force 9, little bit of turf here, and I'm going to try and get a few different colors together. I'm going to ball it up, and I'm just going to press it into that area, sometimes using, you know, my wooden tools or whatever I've got to kind of keep it off my fingers, and give it this sort of a natural look by just pushing it in there into the glue. And what this does is, this is now completely removed the sight unsightly, unpainted area on the back of my Trollblood Champion's foot, but it also added in a little bit of that green to break up the coloring and actually give it a little bit of a more natural feeling. I would then also go through and probably randomly dab a little bit of glue here or a little bit of glue there. And by doing this, I kind of do a three-part method where I focus mainly on setting my turf where I want it. Then I'll go to my static grass, which is real fun to have, but can be a real mess. You just kind of need to drop some of it in there, drop some of it in there, wherever you have the glue. Once again, just like with the grit, look for that organized method. You know, flick it off a little bit, get the stuff off, excess off. Once again, an air duster is really helpful for this because it will definitely make sure that any excess that you had on the base is going to be removed. Now, when you're doing this, you want to also make sure that you have some sort of a plan in your mind of what you want on there, because you don't want it to be too busy where it detracts from the image of the actual model, but you want to make sure that it's busy enough that it adds enough character to the paint scheme that you've probably spent hours on. So, as you can see, the static grass is on there now, and it kind of breaks up a little bit of the coloring. And then I go on to my third part of my method, where I just get a little bit of this Woodland Scenic coarse turf. It's kind of got a mossy feel. It's really light. Pour a little bit in the top here. And what I like to do is I want to give it a, I want to make it feel like it's actually growing. So I will start in one area and I will glue an entire line of glue here. And then I'll put a little bit of excess glue there, maybe just a little bit right there, just so it looks like it's hanging off stuff. Because the static grass, grows up, and I use my flock to basically make sure it looks like it's sitting still. But when it comes to the turf, I want it to have that mossy, lifelike effect, because then it just adds another color and another dimension to your base altogether. So I just kind of, using the top here, we'll just kind of push them around, using that organized chaos effect, as I've mentioned a few times. I'll knock off the excess. And usually when I do this, I'd be a little bit more cleaner about how quickly I do these. And it's real good when you do batch painting, because then you can keep or batch basing, because then you can keep any of the actual excess you have from getting knocked all around. And then, once you've got that all set, you've kind of got this base that has multiple different colors on it. You have different layers, and it breaks up a lot of the stuff, giving you a very decisive and corresponding base that works together with the model. Kind of brings it to life. So when you're done with that, basically you have a base that you can add a little bit more dimension to. There's different things you can do. One thing I like to do, especially with the theme of my Hordes Army, is I like the idea that they fight Circle of Ouroboros a lot. So I like to go and buy pieces of the Circle Army off the PP Privateer Press pieces log, and basically kind of decorate it. So here you have Moraig's shield, and on some of the other bases I have some things. But you can see with this base, using all the techniques that I had, including adding some green stuffed vines, you get a base that feels very alive, and when your model's on it, it just adds an extra layer to it. Some of the bases that I've done recently that a lot of people have liked is like my P Doom Shaper. I had the idea that I wanted him to be extending his scroll, so using different type of basing, using the techniques that I just showed you in this tutorial, I was able to achieve this result with just a little bit of imagination. And then on my most recent Borka Keg Slayer, once again, I used a piece of Circle Ouroboros sprue, and once again, using the steps that I showed, I was able to break up the ground to add a whole new definition of life to it, so that it really brings the model together. So basically, in conclusion, those are the steps that I use in a very quick tutorial to show you what I do to achieve the basing that I do. Now this can be, you don't have to use the exact ways that I do it. There's always a million and one ways to skin a cat, but you can definitely, using different types of flock and basing and basically a color chart, you can create all types of basing using the same idea. Just having a great imagination, planning what you want the storyline for your army to be so that your basing matches your actual army or the figure on top of it, and then just kind of playing around with it. Get yourself some clay, draw on it. You can do things such as pillars or little rocks, anything like that, since it's so malleable and easy to work with. So once again, this is Cutthroat Cure, and I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I hope this answered anybody's questions. Thanks.